David Vizard here, and you are watching PowerTec 10. I'd like to make a statement on our policy for testing speed equipment parts, or in fact any parts related to automotive endeavors. And it goes something like this. If it's really good and it's worth the money, we promote it big time. If we're telling you what you should buy, that means we're stopping you buying what you shouldn't buy. Think about that. If it's mediocre, we don't have time for it. In the main, that is. If it's a rip-off or BS, we are going to expose it big time. Please note, that is a hard and fast policy. Okay, enough frivolity here. What we're presenting here is a live broadcast that we did, must be about a year ago now. And it goes on for over 2 hours. Now, that might be a bit too much to take in one go, so I do suggest that you, if you're going to watch it to the end, that you watch it in maybe 3 parts. Roughly what it contains is a look at the heads that were going on Casper, Andy Wood's motor. They're kind of a Hemi head for small block Ford, so we're going to look at those. And by the way, since then, of course, we've dyno tested them and they work awesome, right? But more on that on Andy's channel. Now, the other thing that we're going to do is look at diesel stuff, and we are going to introduce you to Matt Hussey, who is a diesel expert, runs business down in Alabama, I think it is. And he's come all the way up here to do some testing on his heads and things like this, so we'll look at that. But there's a host of other stuff as well, so hopefully you find something that interests you, and just remember, please comment, please like, please notify, and share. I'd like you to do all those things. So here we go. Are we live now?
Yes.
We're live.
7 o'clock.
Right, okay.
Oh,
Start the show rolling.
I'm Marvin Burke, and we're here tonight. Our show host is David Vizard. Most of y'all know him. And one of our special guests here tonight, he's with us again, is Andy Wood.
Hey everybody, it's good to see y'all tonight.
Top notch. And he's got a project that I'm just amazed about. You know, this well, it's not really a new cylinder head. They're a couple years old.
Yeah.
But
But it hasn't made the sensational hit that it should have done, right? Would you agree with that, Andy?
Yeah, I would definitely agree about it because there's not many people out there aware of it.
Whoa! Right?
David jumped on me about product placement, so we can't show nothing like that on. So I got to get rid of it.
So he's got to put it in this bacon. It makes everything better mug that he's got here. I got one just like that. Right. Anyway, apart from Andy as our special guest, we also have a very special guest who is, how shall I say, an ardent research guy on diesels. Now, I'm going to leave him to do his own introduction here, because all of the things he's doing is outside my memory range, right? So I know he wants to talk about the research that he's doing, and I'll let him do that, because this guy is an expert in his own right, and he deserves to grandstand. Is that right, Matt?
Right. I agree with that.
Right.
Okay, so let's start off with Andy here with these heads.
First, Dennis, if you don't care, give me a report and tell you how the audio is, or if there's anything else we need to work on. Uncle Squirrel.
I'm getting to know that name well.
Yeah.
I don't know you, but I like the name.
It
It's
goes
cool.
good, doesn't it?
Hey,
So let's talk about this cylinder head for a little
yes. My Andy has had to, let me start the ball rolling here. Andy has had to do his racing with a strict eye on the budget. Now, that doesn't make him unique or anything or special. That's the way it is for a lot of us. But he's a championship winner and he's had to do it on a budget. So for him, horsepower and horsepower per dollar are intimately linked,
Absolutely.
right?
Got to get the most bang for the buck.
That's right. And he is always looking for the best bang for the buck. We've managed to do pretty good so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like your truck motor.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was a killer deal on the drag strip and you could drive it around town.
That was the whole point.
Right? Yep. So the thing is he's got a new project going here. And as we're all aware, if you don't have the cylinder heads for a job, then that's a strike against the project right there. So Andy,
All
show
right.
them the Greg Brown cylinder.
Most of you know that I have my own YouTube channel called Unity Motorsports Garage. And I've had this ongoing project called Mixed Up Boss. And the premise for this came, the premise of this came years ago from back in 2016. I seen a small little blurb in Hot Rod magazine about the cylinder heads. They didn't even actually have a picture of it, but it was just a CAD drawing. And I thought it was the most unique thing that you could actually get because it's a Boss 429 style cylinder head that will fit on a small block Windsor. You know, while I would love to have built,
Did I spell it right, Andy?
yes, Unity Motorsports Garage. But, you know, the thing about it is, not when you build a big block Ford with Boss style cylinder heads, you're talking about a huge engine.
Bucks.
Yeah, big bucks, and it's a dimensionally large engine, and it's hard to fit in certain engine bays. And so over the years, I kept in touch with Greg Brown of Hammerhead Performance Engines about the development of these.
He's the ex-John Kazi guy, isn't
Yes, he actually worked at Kazi for about
so
13 years.
He did a lot of cylinder head work for John.
Yeah, he is
right?
a cylinder head guru. And so he had this dream of building a Boss 429 style head to fit small blocks. And at the time, Kazi didn't want anything to do with it. And so he did what most of us do. When you have a dream, reached out and did it himself. And it took a few years to come to fruition, but the finished product was worth the wait, in my opinion. Now, we've had, between us, we've had C3 heads, D3 heads, and those are excellent race heads, no doubt about it.
They are the standard for the
Yeah,
industry, aren't they?
I floated a set of C3s here recently.
Did you really?
Yeah, they hadn't had no major work, you know, as cast, but they come from a retired NASCAR team. I believe it's like 375 to 385. So
Right.
They ended up flowing at what 800,000.
Now, Don Lucito at
Ultra Pro.
Ultra Pro, he was the one that did a lot of work on those cylinder heads for Doug Gates. He and Doug Gates were best friends, right? And the thing is those heads literally set the standard for small block heads.
Yeah.
Right. And if any of you are looking for cup car heads, right out of the box, they're not cheap, but Ultra Pro machines, some of the best on the face of the planet. Right. But now here's the point. For the cup car engine, we've got manifolds to get as well, and we've got valve trains to get, and
The
it
list
just goes on and
No.
on, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, you think it's as simple as bolting a head on, but you realize that it's not that simple. You know, it starts costing those cubic dollars.
Yep. You got the heads free.
Yeah.
It's still expensive because of all the other parts you've got to have.
So when Greg designed these heads, he really didn't have the image or the idea of it being an all-out race head per se. But when he put it on the flow bench and actually seen what he had, that's when eyebrows started getting raised because, like we said, we flowed this right here on David's
Yep,
bench,
yep.
395
My
CFM.
calibrated bench, right?
Yes.
We calibrated it right before we did it, and we checked the 395
Yes.
after to make sure with the plate to see if it came out
And
with the same results.
And the thing about it is, this is an as cast port. He's already pushed these cylinder heads past 500 CFM with this exact casting. So that's a huge deal for a cylinder head to be able to grow from.
There isn't a cup car head out there that does 500 CFM,
Right.
right? And here's the deal. You can buy this complete with all the valve train, rockers, and everything that you
It's a
need
complete kit.
that's not off the shelf stuff
Right.
for less price of a set of bare cup car castings,
Right.
right?
Yeah. All in cost, and this is going to sound expensive, but you can buy the kit. The last time I checked from Greg for about $7,000. That's all in valve,
I could not
rocker
believe
set.
it,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
Everything that isn't stock Windsor or Cleveland stuff, $7,000 ready to go,
yeah.
right? $7,000 spent to make big power as well.
Yeah, the only thing that I didn't do with Greg is I wanted to be able to select our own valve spring package and all of that. So I told him that I would do that myself so that I know that everything is matched up, get the installed height where I wanted it, so on and so forth. But for me, the aesthetics of this engine is very important. It is the fact of having a Boss 429 style head and having the nostalgia of it.
Andy, go and grab those your valve covers there. I'm sure the guys would like to see the valve covers.
The valve covers on this thing are pretty phenomenal.
Oh, I was wanting to show the hammerhead.
Oh yeah. Can you see that on the end there?
Have to jack it up. Have Andy jack it up. Hey, question, Andy.
Yeah.
This is on the same principle as the Cleveland head, correct or not?
Yes, because one of the things that I wanted to have in this is making it look as period as correct as I possibly could. And the original Boss 429s were dry deck design, meaning that no water crossover went.
Jack that up so they can see the hammerhead in one on the end.
Wait, doing this thing. Never mind, I'm not going to do that.
No.
It's a cool look.
It's a hammerhead chart. But the original Boss 429 was a dry deck design, and the coolant passages came out of the front of the head and run up to a remote thermostat housing. And so for me, part of this deal was I could run a regular Windsor style intake and have it like regular Windsor is, have thermostat on the intake. But I wanted to really mimic what a Boss 429 really is. And so that's why I did the coolant crossover. But for me, this right here was the selling point behind all of it. These awesome looking valve covers.
And can you see that? That goes on there. So for all practical purposes, at first glance, this engine will look like a 427.
Put it to you this way. These
429.
these are new stock emblems that were never installed from 1970. I paid out the butt.
You paid more for that than you do.
Not quite, but just about. But anyway, so that's pretty much the story on this. And our performance goal hasn't always been 750 horsepower from 93 pump octane gas. Pump gas deal.
Yeah.
Now the
You've
camshaft.
forgotten the street drivable bit.
Yeah, and it's going to be very drivable on the street.
Yep.
Now the 750 horsepower, I'm not too concerned with that, because what are we concerned with?
Foot pounds.
Because this thing's going in a 4,000 pound truck.
Yeah.
So it's got to make torque. So,
But it had very good port energy and port velocity.
yeah.
So we are expecting to get a really stout motor in terms of torque.
absolutely.
Right. So, it's going to not have any problem moving that 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, because that was one of the most impressive things about the 393 that was in the truck before.
Yeah. The
Was-
1.42, was it
Yeah.
1.42 foot-pounds
Yeah.
per cube? I'll tell you how flexible it was. Granted, it had a stall converter in, but it had absolutely no problem taking off in high gear.
Yeah, you can actually go to my channel and watch a video of driving my truck, and we lugged it down all the way and took off from a stop sign in high gear, and it
Right.
never missed a beat.
And you'd have to have a fairly quick car to have kept up with it. And it left the line in high gear, right?
And this was
That's
with
correct.
this is with a tunnel ram with 2 4s, 660 center squirters.
Somebody's already wanting to buy your project there.
Well,
Overbuilt automotive. I've heard of you guys before.
I've got to run this thing for a while. I can't give this baby up for a little while. The new has to wear off of it.
So you're talking about this makes a ton of torque down low. So you're saying this has a huge port energy and a good velocity.
Yes.
Is it typically over 300 feet per second?
Yeah. Yeah, it's right across that barrier. And
So
Doug Nardi, look. Ooh, topic cover porn.
it really is. Hey,
We-
when John Worldborn
we know
told me
what you
these
mean.
things, I almost kicked the wife out of the bed and slept with these that night, but I decided against that.
Don't let Mandy know about that. She might be
Well,
watching.
Mandy knows because I told her.
what size are them valves? Just
They're 2.25. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the advantages that why this flows so much for a valve only 2.25 is that, look at this, there's no shrouding, zero shrouding, right? Now, you can't, a 4-valve engine has shrouding, a regular 2-valve has shrouding, a big block has shrouding, right? So basically, with a port much smaller in cross-sectional area, unported, this with a slightly smaller valve will outflow a 2.3-inch big block valve
Right.
up to what, probably 400,000.
Yeah, 400 to
And then-
500,000.
And then you
somewhere
better
around
have a good big block, because those numbers they claim on big blocks, we never see them on my bench. You know, there'll be numbers claimed like 420, and we see 390,
there. Yeah.
right? I'm thinking, but now the thing is it's not all about flow figures at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And that's why our next guest came up to see me, because he's already at the pinnacle of the typical experts in the industry, right? And well, you know what? I tell you what, Andy,
Yeah.
you
Let's
wanna-
switch out.
switch out with Matt here. I'm going to let Matt tell you about it, because it's.
I want to thank you
It's,
guys for letting me come on y'all's channel and
Hey,
bombard you with my
I'll
parts.
tell you, next time we'll supply you with the coffee and donuts, right?
All right.
Actually,
You gotta pull your
how
hair
about-
you
how
turn that
about-
around.
I know. How about rum and coke? You
Watch
won't
out
put
now.
it- Right, gotta go there. Right.
Here's your piece.
Andy, thanks for coming along.
Yeah, thank you.
And,
Matt. Pleasure, bro.
Pleasure meeting you too,
right,
brother.
we'll hey, see you later in the week.
Absolutely.
I got an idea.
What?
Once you buy a spare cover and one of them emblems, and we can start acting like Top Gear. We need a cool wall back here to hang stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we might work on that down the road.
Yeah.
Never
Anyway,
know. All right. See you guys later.
okay.
See you, Andy.
Yep. Cheers, Matt. Give him the lowdown.
Hey guys, hope y'all doing great. I'm Matthew Hussey with Chaos Tuning. Yeah, I picked the hat up a little bit so you can see my face. We're known in the Ford market. Anybody who knows us very well that Ford's always been our thing. Recently, we've been doing with the new Chevy L5P, which you see here, which is one of the heads. Let me see if I can pull it back for you. This happens to
Hang
be,
it up on end.
this happens to be for it's a 4-valve. Obviously, this is for a 20 to 2021 late model. And we come up here to see David because, as you know, in the industry, we always talk about CFM numbers. Everything CFM, but nobody ever mentions swirl. port velocity, energy. When's the last time you guys ever had anybody tell you anything like that, especially in the diesel world? Well, that's what we're kind of here for, is because we're here with Mr. David, so he can verify some of the readings and some of the studies that we've been doing on these heads and use his. I don't have some of the equipment that he does, obviously. That's why we're here. And we're
Guys,
gonna see if
let
we
me
can make it
shorten
work.
it up, right? He wanted a second opinion. I'm it.
He is
Right?
the man. Yes, he is. He is
And
the
so everything that he's told us he's doing is what we would have recommended if he hadn't have known about it. So far, we've been pretty useless, haven't we?
man. No, not really. No, I wouldn't say that at all. You've been great. Y'all guys have been great, man.
So Matthew, is it true? Flow don't really matter that much on diesel heads, that you just put more boost to it.
That's so funny. I've heard that so much. It's just it just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
You know, boost is nothing but a measurement of restriction, and it's what the engine wasn't able to use. Whenever I see boost numbers,
Boy, shall we tell him about Jerry Magnuson? I said about that last time. My friend Jerry Magnuson, the guy that designed the blowers that went on Mercedes and Pontiac, and what other vehicles were they on? Magnuson blower. Ford, they were on Ford, weren't they? Right.
Yeah.
And those of you who tuned in a couple of weeks ago, remember I said, Jerry said to me that if you want see the most boost, if you're a boost hunter, right, you'll get the most boost with the intake valves welded closed. Won't make any horsepower, but it will make the most boost. Now,
that is true. So true.
A lot of diesel guys they make a lot of smoke and things like this. And what Matt's attempting to do with this here, but this is a great piece to start with, isn't it? Is more power, more fuel efficiency, and less emissions.
That's correct.
Right?
Mhm.
And that's why he's researching stuff that I don't even know if the manufacturers research this.
No, I mean they get them into specifications and then they sell them. That's all
Yeah.
they have to do.
Yeah. So basically, what you're doing is you're taking what seems to be a pretty advanced design for the industry,
Mhm.
and you're moving it up the ladder, right?
Yes.
With all the things that you're seeing with this and planning with it, right? It's like more power without necessarily any more boost.
Or possibly more power with less boost.
Yep.
I mean,
Right,
that's very
so-
possible. I mean, the industry relates power in the diesel world. For many years, it's been related to the amount of smoke that comes out. You wouldn't believe the
Yeah.
things I've heard over the years in relation to what people physically see: boost gauge, smoke out the tailpipe, multiple things, but none of that has anything to do with efficiency and power.
No.
None. And so that's kind of what we're looking to do, or that's what we're going to do, is offer something to the general public that gets the best of everything. And one of the biggest things, and you talk about it all the time on your shows, is swirl.
Oh,
That's so important
yeah.
in the diesel
Yeah.
world
Yeah.
that because you got to think we're using compression to fire the fuel, not a spark.
Yep.
So when we disrupt that or we change that, distort it of any kind, any way, we really are going to get into trouble. Big
Yes.
trouble.
Yeah.
And that's where the equipment and the stuff you have
Yep.
is going to help
Yep.
take it to the next level.
And the other thing is, of course, we have just a ton of data. I mean, it goes back 50 years.
Spud Forever says those heads look like they'd flow better than the Mississippi. I like that.
You know what?
That's funny. They do. They probably
you might well
will
be
flow
right.
as good. But we're going to make it better than the Mississippi.
So how close are you to Mississippi?
Pretty close. We're just one state over. Yep, one state from the Mississippi. We're over in Alabama, and we've
But
been doing this.
don't the Tennessee River go through Alabama?
I hope not.
Don't that bother you guys down there?
Well, we're Tide fans, man. We're winners. We're winners.
Roll Tide. Okay.
But yeah,
Go,
the full
go
valve-
Vols, by the way.
Yeah, I hear you.
JP Freeman, Diesel Talk. Yes, finally. Hey, there's only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, we could be.
We
there all day.
agree with your, how shall I say, liking of diesels, right? My next door neighbor's got a absolutely awesome Ford from the ground up. Doug's Ford, right? Turbo diesel, and boy, I tell you what, it runs like a cross between a sports car, a truck, and a Lincoln.
I mean, we have trucks that we have that's, typical full 4 door, like an F-250, for example, it's pushing, over 8,000 pounds. I mean, we've got these trucks that's run efficiently, 13.2, 13.4. That's pretty good quarter-mile time for an 8,500 pound truck. And you can drive it anywhere you want, and it's
Yeah.
clean. That's the key. Clean.
Yep. That's amazing, right? And and I tell you, as a gasoline high RPM guy who's used to 10,000 RPM 1 liter minis, right? Fact is, stand on that gas pedal and you still don't get over 4,000 RPM. And it sets you back in the seat. You don't come back out of that seat until you're way down the road.
That's right. Torque is what you feel. And that's another thing. We've gas tuned for many years, and we love gas tuned. We're very passionate about it. But in the diesel market started exploding years ago, and we kind of helped pioneer and get on board with that and offer a lot of things for our customers. But what I'm really, really pleased, and I can't wait, and I'm excited to bring, the head porting and the head, to raise the bar basically in the diesel industry with what's available out there that I think's been overlooked and has been missed, for a very long time. Just because JP Freeman says I've been playing with nozzle angles and piston chamber angles for better swirls to get a cleaner burn.
Yeah, there is so many tricks to that, isn't there? You've been telling me some of the things that you've been experimenting with, right? And the world is expert on diesels, but I don't think we're anywhere near the end of the road, are we?
No, we're not nowhere close. You have water methanol, injection. We were talking about that, where you can spray water meth. A lot of guys use snow kits. I'm sure all you out there are familiar with the snow kits, water methanol for, raising octane, especially on boosted cars where you can use that to get you by if you're running pump gas, and you can get a little bit more time in running something like that. Well, guess what? Diesels are in the same. They love that just as much. Nitrous, that's a huge deal. Diesels love nitrous. We've done and tested all of that as well. And at our test facility, which is an R&D facility, it's really not for the general public. It's for us, more or less, to be able to
do R&D.
To do R&D. We need to know what's it going to take and what's it not going to take at the end of the day. Yep.
So, something we haven't even we discussed a lot of things the last couple of days, but we even talked about something I got on my mind. We need to be exploring the possibilities of porting the piston, because that's the combustion chamber on the diesel. That heads don't have any. We're so used to manipulating the chamber shape.
Yep, that's true. The combustion chamber is located in the top of the piston. And what most guys do, and we've done it for years as well, is we'll go in and you will actually machine around the bowl. And machining around the bowl helps to stop from hot spots, especially from casting errors or casting flaws, I like to call it, where there's errors there that can be improved on, and you kind of clean the bowl area. With aftermarket cams, we can fly cut the pistons for better valve clearance as well.
Answer that question there.
Spud forever, right?
We're about that. Where we at?
Spud. Thank you for your concern for my good health. Right.
Oh, Spud forever. Yeah. Where are those diesel heads available? I can get Marvin here to put our stuff up here when we're done to our email, so you can get a hold of us, and we can answer any kind of questions. We can help you out with pretty much anything you need, from 6.0s, 6.7s, even especially the Duramax. And we're offering Cummins support as well for all of our Cummins guys. That's a much talked about topic. We could probably do a second episode on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. You're going to be here next week as well, aren't you?
I'm gonna be here till Sunday
Right.
week. Yes.
So yes,
We
so
could even
the
give some
thing is,
info on what we in our R&D.
yeah, we will be able to fill you guys in on some of the details we found us, but also correct me if I'm wrong. I've seen you grinding away on LS1 heads. What's the deal there?
Yep, we're trying to get into the LS market, especially in our area. That's obviously, as you know, for many years,
But wait
LS
a
is the
minute, just in
go-to.
case you don't mention it, the correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt. But the reason you want to get into the LS market is because of your turbocharger expertise.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Your thinking is that there's more power to be had per pound of boost than we're currently seeing.
Go ahead and put your email in there.
Sure. So, right. So, any uh, get in contact with Matt here. This is the um, email. I didn't notice that was your email.
Just hit enter.
Have I got your personal email?
That'll be able to get to us any day, any time, and we can set you up. We have dealers, that we work with all over.
You got something, we had discussed. Go ahead.
Hang on. Here's a question here from Jeffrey Brooks that takes me back a ways. Where is it? The 461X Chevy Fuelie heads flow. Now, Jeffrey, allow the fact that it could be 1985 since I've flown a set of these heads or even used a set. So what does that make it? 36 years, right? As I remember it, the 461s had a bigger pull, but they didn't flow much more. And if you use those, I could be mistaken here, but as I remember it, if you use those heads on a regular 350, right, compared with say the 186 or the regular 461 heads, the first thing you saw was a drop of about 30 foot-pounds in torque for only a gain of around 10 horsepower at the top end, right? So it wasn't my favorite head since I used those 461 and 186 heads at the time on high performance road vehicles. And when you know how to modify those early smaller chamber, closed chamber, smaller port heads, if you knew how to do it, they produced excellent results for the street, right? So, that's where I am with that. Those 461 heads were for.
He's actually referring to 461X.
The 461X.
They were rumored to be experimental, but not really.
They were for stock class.
But with my expertise and FAUX opinion, they flow 3 CFM more than the 461. FAUX. I bet Dennis can explain that if he's still listening.
You listening, Dennis? So there will be 1,000 horsepower LS machine up and down the block. Machines up and down the block. Well, I don't know that they're going to be as common as dirt, but because I think it works out at about 10 horsepower. Sorry, at least $10 per horsepower, right? Plus the cost of the parts.
Plus the cost of the parts. Yeah, that's
Right.
a good way of putting it.
I know everybody's interested in the diesel heads here, and this is a super interesting subject, but there's more. We were only limited to so much time, before we start taking questions. But
Sure.
We've had a discussion a couple times last couple days about your gas experience, gasoline tuning stuff.
Yeah. I heard you cause people problems with your drag race cars.
Yeah,
Right.
we have. Andy it was really a breath of fresh air to be able to find another 2-valve 40 guy because we're a 2-valve 40 guy
Yeah.
with twin turbos that's go
Well,
over 1,000 horsepower.
You know, if you amazingly those early 2-valve engines, you put the trip
Trip
flow
flows.
heads
Mhm.
on. Boy, I thought whoever did those trip flow heads did an amazingly good
They
job
did. They
because
flow.
they transformed that engine into something at least as good as a 3-valve engine.
They do. They do.
Right? They really work well. Really work well.
They do. They do. And turbos, like you were saying earlier about the turbochargers, that's something that diesels now, that goes hand in hand. We were talking earlier about how the manufacturers put the turbochargers on these trucks and they do them very well for what they do. When you go in and start calibrating these trucks, you can run out of turbo really fast. So there's so
Yeah.
many things that the customers really need to be more educated on.
Aware of, yeah.
Sure. When
Yeah.
they're doing modifications to their truck, there's for every action's reaction, right? So they need to know what they're doing,
I'm not
what
going
they're
to
buying.
that one.
John Cummins, right? Are you any relation to the Cummins diesels?
It wouldn't-
And yes, my book would give you a lot of indication of what to do with the diesel heads. However, you've got to keep swirl in mind because if you don't have swirl, you don't have the results you're looking for.
Yep. Same in the diesels.
That's what he was.
Oh, on his Cummins?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that mean? Boost is almost always better than butter.
Say what now? What's that?
Oh, it's on my screen.
Oh, boost is almost always better than butter.
Parquet.
Yeah.
Parquet.
Depends how hungry you are.
I guess so.
Right.
What about we had port injection for many years. The throttle body injection was just something, just a simple economy carburetor replacement. But then we started doing port injection, and now we've got into direct injection. Did that come from the diesel industry, didn't it? When they started
It very well could have.
You can't have a diesel without direct injection, can you?
No.
No, sorry, I'm wrong there. Those little glow plug aero engines they have a carburetor on.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You just can't build a big one.
Right,
Over
right.
about 15 cc, they're not very functional. But boy, do they scream 20,000 RPM.
But now what Mr. Marvin's talking about with direct injection now, we've seen an increase in, direct injected gas engines with a very lower miles than normal with very coked up intake valves. And so there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages between port injection and direct injection.
Good day from Australia, right? Bias TV. Where's Bias TV from? I know Australia, but it's a big country. What part? Right?
Oh wait, there's your answer for
Where?
my opinion a while ago.
Greetings from Norway. V8 torque. Yes, there's an educated guy. Of course, everyone from Norway is smart, but the rest of the world hasn't realized that yet. They've got some pretty good racers in Norway as well.
I was just reading through some of these comments.
What about intake running lengths and pulse? What's the word I'm looking for, Dave?
Cylinder pulse?
Pulse tuning on diesels.
Well, the diesel, unlike the gas burner, as you know, it has an unrestricted amount of air entering the engine all the time. It doesn't have a throttle body that actually creates vacuum like in a gas burner as the throttle body closes.
Yeah.
The diesel's
wide open
all the time, and we just add the fuel to.
We say hit the throttle, but we
correct.
should say hit the diesel pedal.
Hit the diesel pedal. That's correct. Add the fuel. because that's
So
you know,
there's no reversion
oh,
issues with
no,
that.
there's reversion. There has to be some kind of reversion, is obviously, but as far as like in the gas world versus the diesel world, them are the things that we don't have to battle with as much, because leaning a diesel out does not hurt it. Contrary to what somebody may think, it just won't run if you take the fuel away. It's getting it too hot that will hurt it. Hotter EGTs can damage the engine. Leaning it out is not going to do nothing but make it stop running. So
Have you got a comment on ProCharge at Mopar there? I'm not sure exactly what he's saying there. Maybe I'm missing something. Daily driver torque instead of bathtub style setups.
what kind of Pro Charger or Pro Charge Mopar? What kind of heads and what diesel are we referring to? Are we talking about the late model stuff, or what are we referring to?
We're waiting for you, ProCharge Mopar.
Please type quicker. We're impatient. Everybody watching this is impatient. Hurry.
Yeah, we got Donald Trump on next. Hurry up. Doug Nardin, header on turbo diesel. You know, I think Matt will agree with me here.
There's Bias TV.
You know, but I'm not sure you're aware, but my mother was Australian, right? She lived up in Yeppoon. Well, she used to live in Sydney, but about 20 years ago, she moved up to Yeppoon, right? So
there you go. Pro Charger.
I'm a newbie common rail owner. Intake looks like a bathtub. Does that, you know, we might understand what you're saying if we had the engine in front of us.
Yeah, or what kind of engine you're referring to, obviously. But now there is gains to be made, in certain applications, like with the way the air enters the head. Obviously, it's model and engine dependent as well. Anybody who's been driving anything from a 2011 up Ford 6.7 Power Stroke, they've completely redesigned that engine, and that is a Ford engine, not an International. And the intake actually flows through the valve covers into the outside of the head. The exhaust manifold runs inside the valley of the head and feeds the turbo. So it's kind of neat. It helps to get the turbo up spool faster. I think it helps with delay times with the exhaust pulses to the turbo. So again, I'm a little biased toward Ford. So any Ford guys out there, give us a shout out. Let us know what we answer, any questions for you too.
Can we take a look at Overbuilt Automotive? Right.
Well,
have you got any comments on that 8-1 to 14-1? It seems to me, and I've heard of this, I don't know how they're doing it, I haven't looked into it, but it seemed to me that getting this deal with a variable compression engine it's easier to get the same effect with variable cam timing and ignition for a lot less complexity. And I'm saying this without seeing how they're doing it.
On the Porsches, they do it with a articulated connecting rod that's variable.
Yeah.
They vary the oil pressure to extend the connecting rod to make it extend the piston closer to the head.
Right. Well,
increase the chamber volume.
Yeah.
If they design their cylinder heads properly, they wouldn't need to do that. Right. I had to do some work on Porsche heads, and I could not believe how simplistic they were, and really not up to the technical spec that I expected of Porsche. Right. I know why they use 2 spark plugs, that's for sure. They don't need to if they've done their job properly.
Back to ProCharge
There you
Mopar.
go.
Yes, you can get gains from changing the intake.
Yes.
you can.
Yep.
You can.
Yep. We were talking about that this afternoon, weren't we? Yes.
Data logging, that's something that's not talked a lot about too. For bro charge,
Yeah.
data log of the truck too, because cooler intake air charges is got to happen, and safe EGTs has got to happen. All the new trucks come with mass airflow sensors. If it's making more power, it's moving more air, it's going to raise the mass airflow. That's a really good indication of if it's before moving, 46, 47 pounds of air, you put an intake, aftermarket intake on it, you data log, and now it's moving 50 pounds of air. Well, that's good. That means there's more air being pumped through the engine. Keep in mind, guys, diesels are nothing more than air pumps like gas. So it's the same thing. If you can move
But they're
more air,
complicated air pumps.
they're complicated a little bit, but they're still air pumps. More air, more
Yeah.
fuel, more power. It's really that simple.
There's another bathtub intake. Kind of.
Yeah,
That's
the
where the
Hemi
legend
NASCAR
come
intake,
from.
yeah.
Uh-oh, I like the name. What's
Well,
it saying?
I mean, how do you know? What do you know? Oh,
You're talking about that
smoke
today.
machine expert.
It's an industrial electronic cigarettes is all they are.
So, an industrial grade one, right?
Yep.
Marvin is, we have smoke generators, and Marvin is continually, he's a born racer. If some's good, more's better, too much is just right. When you see smoke coming out of all of our windows, you'll know he has achieved his goal, right? When we get there, he'll be selling them, right? So we might, I'll tell you what. Okay, guys, let's have a vote on this. How to build your own smoke generator for a video. What do you think?
Just keep giving me more to do.
Right, a simple one, right? It won't be like what we're planning on selling, but it will be a simple. I seem to remember when we started off, we had something that was barely any more complicated than a spoon stirring a cup of coffee, right? We could tell them how we built something like that, and go from there.
There's another good diesel comment.
Unburnt
Yeah.
fuel, same thing else. Yep. Yep. Wasted fuel. Smoke out the tailpipe, wasted fuel, and it's
Cigar in a soup can.
useless. There was another one. Go back up. There was another good one about the Mr. J.P. Freeman said, David, you have any experiment on? Have you experimented on cams and valve trains on the diesel side? Do you have any input? I have a little bit of input I can put on that if you want me to.
Do I have any
What's-
expert?
What's all cam events are just input. That's my
Very little. I worked with Harvey Crane years ago for, he wanted to do some industrial cams for diesels, right? And he gave me a call and asked me if any of my computer programs that I use for predicting the valve events would work with a diesel. And I said, well, yes, we have to know a whole load of data, right? We'd have to know the back pressure. We'd have to know the compression ratio. All of this was available, but the problem was is the back pressure changes, doesn't it? Right. So we had to say, where did you want this cam to work? Because the cam for the back pressure to boost at low RPM is a lot different from the one at high RPM. So which one do you use? Right. Anyway, we did some, but it's so long ago.
no. You can
Can't
wave
remember.
that. Wave at him. That's his daughter and his wife.
He's a good guy. He's a good guy. There's a lot of him as well.
But I can add to the camshaft to that as well.
Yep.
The new
go
trucks
ahead.
have the variable geometry turbos, but when you start adding the cams, and this is for the guys that are moving away to a non-turbocharger. It is really, really crucial that you get with someone who knows what they're doing with the non-VGT turbochargers, because it will be laggier, it will be dirtier, it will be the drivability can fade quickly. We recommend stall converters to help with more RPMs to drive the non-VGT, transmission tuning. I mean, there's a list of stuff we could go on and on, but do your homework. Do your homework and get with somebody and people that really time in testing this
The
stuff,
experience.
so you're
people.
getting your money's worth.
Yep.
I'm a VGT guy. A non-VGT has its home on the racetrack as a compound over a factory charger. When you're wanting to compound your truck, it's great for towing, lowering EGTs, and improving back pressure. But that's just a little rundown on some of the experience that I figured I would throw out there for you, to help answer your question.
The KA. I got a set of Mexican-made 062 Vortec heads. How do they compare against the genuine GM ones? Heard there's some flow differences. Now, we have had some experience with this, but it's been limited.
Well, is he saying Mexican made GM 062s, or is he talking about Mexican made in aftermarket?
Well,
I think he's talking about the GM. So there's if you're building a 604 crate motor or 602 crate motor or a dirt class motors, and you can't do no work at all to the port, I'd say that the 062 truck Vortex are going to be superior by maybe 5 or 7 horsepower if you get everything just right. But if you got a set of, if you're not putting them on a class motor like that, 15 to 20 minutes on each port, you're going to take them all to a superior,
Yep.
what, average of 30 or 40 CFM you can make in 15 minutes.
Yep. It doesn't take long to pump in 30 horsepower into a set of Vortec heads. Right, you might want to check our Vortec intake and exhaust port deals on YouTube. Right, we've got an intake video that cuts through all the BS out there, and there's just too many people out there saying, well, this is how you port a Vortec head, and they're wrong, right? They don't have a flow bench, they don't have a dyno, it's just not going to work, right? And the other thing is there is a great deal to be learned about exhaust ports for all 23-degree Chevy heads by looking at what works on a Vortec head, because the Vortec head exhaust port is very, very similar to a lot of aftermarket heads, right? But we still got part 3 to do on the exhaust ports, haven't we?
Yeah.
Right. So that is, go and watch those 3 videos on my my video head. My Vortec head videos, right? Marvin, do you remember what numbers they are?
No.
No. Okay. Right. Okay. You'll have to find them, right? But they're on my list of stuff out there.
Liberty and Justice for All has asked a couple different questions on the camshaft and camshaft math. I think I'd like to get into that, but I think that's a rabbit hole. We end up taking up the whole rest of the session. So I think we'll cover that later. Apologies to Liberty and Justice for All.
Yeah, we are going to be doing a
that would get
big,
down the rabbit hole quick.
probably about 3-part deal on camshaft specking, right? After that, if you can absorb everything there, you will know more than the guys who answer the phone at the camp companies.
What Pro Charger Mopars have you been watching?
Force torque.
Diesel. I don't know where to go.
Here you go.
Turbo. Let's see here. They're testing the VGT charger combo, and I would say that it definitely would be great. That's down low throttle response. I mean, when you pull your VGT away, I get so many calls every week. My truck's laggy. My truck don't have the throttle response it had, and the guys pulling a camper. That's a no-no. I would never put a non-VGT turbocharger where a VGT was pulling a camper or anything like that. Horses, cows, farming, whatever you're using it for. No, keep the VGT or get a modified larger VGT. I assure you, you'll be much happier.
And
Mr. X, how do you pronounce that? The X is pronounced Z, isn't it? For your information, there's a brand new four-banger that makes it 700 or 800 horsepower and has no counter-rotating shafts. He did this by redesigning the connecting box. What you're saying is there's no secondary out of balance forces, right? Because a four-cylinder is in primary balance, that's an inline four, right? A Volkswagen engine's got secondary balance as well, right? And it says brand new four banger that makes 700 or 800 horsepower, right? Is that all?
Yeah, just 700 or 800 horsepower out of a
Right.
four-cylinder. That's
Sorry,
nothing.
that's a bit.
That's so common.
That's a
today.
bit. You know,
when David puts his mind to it, the last effort he done was like 1,300 horsepower at the crankshaft on it.
no, it was more than that. It was nearly 1,200 at the wheels on drag slicks, uncorrected on a dyno in Florida on 100-degree, 99% humidity. Nothing was in its favor. We reckon corrected horsepower was probably around 1,500, and that was a 122-inch engine, right? Then when it got to the track, it absolutely wasted the competition. So, I don't want anyone saying, yeah, it's all very well to quote these big numbers, but that doesn't always win races. Well, this one not only won, it made the competition look absolutely pathetic. On the final run, this was I think this is 2004 Winter Nationals at Palmdale for imports. The owner driver had to pedal it 3 times, and he still went through the 6 car lengths in front of the much vaunted 6-cylinder Nissan truck.
I like that question. How about that? What he said. King O'Can says diesel is for big trucks, not idiots blowing smoke. I'm right there with you, brother. Right there with you.
Where's that?
It's his comment. I'm right there. We have literally not hours, not days, but weeks, months in testing. With emissions on, of course, how to keep these trucks happy, how to exceed, meet, or beat the standards that we've been put at for these trucks to be at, and it's so time consuming. I don't think a lot of people realize the time and the energy that goes into this type of this part of the industry.
Yes, and it's far from common knowledge, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's the best kept secret in the world, but it is a long way from being common knowledge, right? Now then, Liberty, right? What's your message first? We are going to do a video just for you, just not next week.
And greetings to Hawaii, by the way. Matthew, I'm just amazed. I've been around David for quite a few years now, but I'm amazed at the international people that draw to him. Every time we get on here, it's Hawaii.
Yeah, I see that. It's from all over. It's everywhere. It's all over the world.
A trivia question of the day, David.
Yep.
What animal has the most variations in the world that's only found in New Zealand, or mainly found in New Zealand?
Sheep.
Okay.
right? There's more sheep in New Zealand than there are people.
Now, what's this? Somebody's disrespecting me there.
Do what now?
When his floating smoke trails in. Oh, the smoke.
Oh,
Can I,
Oh, very-
Cameron, let me talk about this 1991% intake port throat rule, right? I may be the originator of that rule. I wrote about port throat sizes versus valve sizes and valve seats in my how to port cylinder heads that I wrote in 1968, right? And I keep getting people throw it back at me saying, don't you know there's a 91% rule that you should, and I think, yeah, I've been doing this since 1968. Now, it's not that simple. I am doing a video now on, have we published it yet?
Don't think so.
The one where I'm saying it's, you should have
I thought-
91% of the valve radius on the long side and 92 to 93 on the short side, if you want to get that fussy.
That's one of your 5 rules, isn't it?
Oh, yes, that's the one.
You haven't done all the rules.
Right, no, I haven't finished it yet, right? Okay, where was it?
Right here.
Karen, watch out that I probably will be publishing later on in the week, right? Depends on how hard Matt works me here, right? But it will cover that. And is 91% ideal? It's not that simple. I know you might have heard of porting by numbers, but they are just guidelines, right? Isn't that how it worked out in Pirates of the Caribbean? Like,
yeah.
I think
it was just
Pro
guidelines.
Charger.
We're just guidelines. That's correct.
Pro Charger knows more about your videos than I do.
Where?
Right there.
Except the most recent part 1.
Okay, now address that question there, David.
I have no idea how to pronounce that name.
Alejandro drums.
Yep, Alejandro drums.
Alejandro, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You
Of course,
realize
you're down close to Texas, ain't you?
You realize if you've got my high flow test cylinder heads, you have the greatest, most powerful modifications to 4-valve heads on the face of the planet right in there. The polyquad, right? Go and read it again. And if you have any questions on it, ask them next week, right? We'll be able to cover you on that, right? But that engine I just said that was about 1,500 flywheel horsepower was polyquad, right? So 750 horsepower per liter. What is that? That's about 14 horsepower per cubic inch, I think. We worked that out.
And
Does your
that's a
2-liter
yes.
4-book deal directly with the 1973 Pinto motor? It deals only with the Pinto motor, right? The 2-liter Ford, I don't know when they started making the 2.3, but that's a pile of junk compared with the 2-liter one, right? Not that the 2-liter engine is brilliant, right? It's just a lot better designed engine than the 2.3, which has a cylinder head on it, which gives you a different intake and exhaust port on every cylinder.
Hey, yeah.
If you're building one of the 2.3s,
We're
you really
live
need
right now
ignition
if you
timing
wanna try to
and
find it
an
on
ignition
YouTube.
curve for
Maybe.
every cylinder. 2-liter engine is very happy with one ignition curve, right? So, does Mr. Chipmaker, does that answer your question? If you make chips for 2.3s, right? If I'm inferring right here, you need to have 4 ignition timing curves, right?
And
Nothing in an engine performance, right?
There's a good one right there from Franco.
that's
That's what-
Dennis, by the way.
Nothing. I like that. That's a typical smart comment from him. Well done, Dennis. Nothing in the engine performance world can be described with one-liners. There are always absolutely
What,
yes.
what do you expect from a smart mouth German?
Right. Yeah. Guys, the gentleman I'm talking to here is well above average intelligence. So
Franco's
Anyway.
got a good question.
sending a huge thank you for bringing consistent sharing involving David. I have always been studying David's material for over 20 years. And Michael, you haven't got bored yet? My goodness, you must have some incredible mental stamina, right? I get bored reading my stuff. Of course, I know what it's going to say. Andrew Steele. Hi, guys. Have you ever done any work with propane? Yes. What would be the maximum dynamic compression on a big block Chevy truck?
Well, that depends on if you're running rocket fuel, if you're running kerosene.
No, with propane.
Oh, with propane.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give you my best guess without looking up some of my notes, right? Which at the moment I have no idea where they are. But I seem to remember that with the propane motors that we got involved in, we used a pretty high dynamic compression, right? 9-to-1 rings a bell, right? But that's about as far as I can tell you. I'm having to remember back about 40 years. Randy Wheeler, right? How are you doing, Randy? Good, I hope.
Oh, by the way, Alejandro Drums, he does get it even though he asked the question. Polyquads.
Okay. Alejandro, you need our flow bench program because it will tell you what those ratios should be for your particular compression, etc., etc. Right? It will give you the number to shoot for. It will tell you whether your ports are too big, too small. It will give you all the data you want. So you email Marvin here at davidvizardperformanceseminars.com. Is that it?
Yeah, I'm fixing to post it here.
Right. Okay. So now, can the guys all see that?
No.
Can they now? No.
There you go.
There's you the. Oh, also, let's get the.
Yes, I did. Right. I've lost the guy's message now.
Oh.
Quick, where's it? Mr. James, Mr. JCW James. Right, I did. I worked on equipment to test the instruments that controlled that also fed into the automatic pilot and automatic landing system on it. Right. When these flat earthers say there's no such thing as gravity, I built a machine that could detect something like a millionth of a G. When it rained, it could show the gravitational pull increase from the nearby hill because it got wet, right? and then I get people say, well, of course, there's no such thing as gravity. It's just density and buoyancy. Right.
Yeah,
I've
but-
come to the conclusion. You
But
know
did-
what?
did-
I bet you if we checked to see how many flat earthers
I was
had
just
ever
gonna say flat earthers.
designed a car that had won a race, it would be almost nil, right? Because they can't seem to get anything mechanically right.
What happens when they go from the north to the south, the Coriolis effect reverses their theories. They just don't take that in.
Right. Oh, and by the way, the South Pole doesn't go around the world. You know, I've got a friend of mine who went to the South Pole, and he says, "Well, you can't convince these people, right? You know, they'd argue black fitted their sequence. They haven't done their homework. Just leave them be." So that's what I do, right? Leave them be.
That's right. I'm getting them set up with a link. Yeah. That's a software program.
Yep. And back when 9.5 compression was average, yes, that's the static compression there. Spud Forever. Spud, have you got a real name? Right? That seems almost an insulting name to have. Right, Spud Forever. Right. I'm sure your real name's much more.
It's Mr. Potatoes and
Now the 9.5 was a static compression. The dynamic compression from that was probably nearer about 7.5 to 8 to 1. So
Franco has a good question. Cam time and intake duration at 50, which is more accurate? He must be talking about when he's degreeing his camshaft in.
cam timing, intake center line or duration at 50, which is more accurate. Right. Well, okay, Franco.
shouldn't it be the same?
No. Let's establish something first. Where are you getting your intake center line or cam events from? If it's from the cam grinder and it just says so in a form, right, and they don't know exactly what your engine is, it's nothing better than their best guess, right? So getting all, how should I say, down to the nitty gritty on putting that timing in, you have no idea whether it's the right timing or not, right? And I'm actually going to do a video on that. Let me tell you now that your average timing figure as printed on a card is nothing more than the cam grinder's best guess. And I've
Off
got
the dial, they grind it. They
Yeah.
usually use the dial pin as
Yeah.
a starting pin.
well, yeah, there's no, even if the cam is ground exactly right, and they say put it in 4 degrees advance, that 4 degrees is a guess, their best guess. I'm going to do a video on this, and it's going to be coming where I tell you what the real situation is with advance and retard. I have a Rick, Spud for Rick.
His
Okay,
name's Rick.
okay, Rick. I'm going to see if I can remember that right. Rick, did I just answer the question to Franco? Okay.
Yes, I think you did. I think what's important, Franco, I'm gonna just throw my 2 cents in here.
Yeah.
When you have the degree wheel and you're degreeing in, I really think one of the biggest things guys miss is the intake valve opening and the intake valve closing events. So really pay attention to that when you're doing that as well. That's a real big deal
Yeah.
for me.
Uh,
Not just the center line, so to speak, or what the card says.
See that degree wheel over there, the red one?
Mhm.
You don't have to do any calculations with it. One on the wall over there.
Yep, I see that.
Right now, I showed this to the guys well, it'll be about a month ago now. Right, this is a calculation-free degree wheel. Right, is based this particular one's my prototype one. Right, comp cams didn't produce it because they've got a $2,000 electronic one they were going to market instead, right? And they said this one would be too expensive. And I thought, 110 bucks? Thing is if you've got a big block Chevy, Moroso makes one like this, and it's perfect for doing a big block Chevy because it's bigger than this, and it comes to the edge of the block, and you can really dial the cam in accurately. Now, what this does is it saves a guy having to do a calculation on it. It reads out what your cam advance is, and I'll quickly tell you how it works. Right? See if I can remember here. You've got this second degree wheel here, right? And by the way, I didn't patent this, so if anybody wants to make it, go ahead, be my guest, right? It's never going to make me any money. It's sure is convenient. Now, what you do first is you set up TDC and you set up your zero mark on here. I know there's a zero mark on here. Yeah, there, right at TDC, pointing at TDC. Then you rotate this until the cam is like the lifter on it, the dial indicator is about 20 thousandths or so before full lift. And you turn this inner degree wheel so that whatever the pointer is pointing to that's on the block, pointing to here, you match it with the inner degree, right? So if it says 80 degrees, where's 80? 80 degrees, I haven't got my glasses on, right? And you match it with 80 degrees here, like that, and lock it. Then you go over TDC back down to 20. And there's your timing on the inner scale. Whatever the inner scale reads, that's your lobe centerline angle. No calculations.
It's really nice.
Right? Now, like I say, the one that Moroso markets, it's a giant one, right? And I often find that it's too big for a small block, but it's absolutely for big block engines, right? Because it fits. You've got the pointer just here. It just works really good, right? I can't remember how much they are, but I think they're about 110 bucks.
So if I can add into that, so basically what you're saying is guys just have to break the calculator out and they have to figure out
Yeah, you don't have to with it.
50 or 20 before the nose, 50 or 20 after the nose, add them together, divide them by 2, you come up with your center line. That takes all of that out of the equation.
Yeah, it just reads it
That's
out.
nice.
Right?
That's very
I'd
nice.
like to make an announcement here.
Very nice.
For some of you just joining us, we apologize that we announced all week that it was going to be 8 o'clock, but we started an hour early because Andy had a sudden appointment come up where he had to take a plane, and
Unfortunately, Andy is a very important guy for a lot of people, right? So sometimes other people rule his life, and that's really what happened here, isn't it? Right?
But we're probably going to continue on another 45 minutes, make this a little longer. So
and
since a lot of people may have just joined
we
us.
haven't run Matt dry yet, right? But we're getting there.
No, you're getting there. You've been working me though.
You've
been working me.
Right. So anyway,
and
you didn't finish answering the question about the.
Go ahead.
That's one.
Plug your porting software since I've got the link up on the screen again.
Oh.
You're talking about the polyquads and the 4-valve options.
The IOP program, which is Induction Optimization Program. Right. So
program IOPP
is capable of doing. I think we could do 5-valve engines with it because it says how many valves.
Yes,
we can do 5-valve. Yeah, I know, but let me tell you, I'm not a lover of 5-valve engines, right? I'm not sure I've come across a 5-valve engine yet that I couldn't beat with a 4-valve engine, and it's simpler, right? So, am I an expert on 5 valves? Not really. thing that I've done with 5 valves is try and beat my 4 valves. And if I can't do it, I'm not sure who else can. So, but the point is this, the program tells you so much more about the cylinder head than just flow. Those of you who are joining us, this is why Matt has come up here, because we've got stuff here in my shop that he'd have to be going to GM and say, can I borrow your research department? So basically what he's come up to do, and I know I'm repeating this from earlier on, he's come up to get a second opinion, right? And that's what he's been doing the last 2 days, is going through what he thinks this should do, or what it maybe it needs to have done in it. And have I got any data that supports or disagrees, or what are my thoughts on it, etc. And basically that's what you're doing. And of course you've got a free run of all the stuff here, including all the flow. What did you think of my flow bench program?
Oh man, I just absolutely love it. It's
Yeah.
a must have.
Yeah,
I mean, it really is. It's a must have.
it's if you've got a diesel engine, right? There's nothing out there like it, is there?
No,
Right.
nothing that can touch it.
You will know beforehand whether that motor is going to make more horsepower or not.
Yeah.
That's before you ever get to the dyno. You can say, yeah, well, this will make more horsepower, right? And it should make about 40 horsepower more, 50, whatever, right? And the amazing thing is, it's usually within 10 horsepower, right?
Data.
I say usually.
It's data.
It's data. Yeah. It's the sum of 50 years of gathering data and dyno expertise. And Matt's that, right?
Trying to.
Yeah, well, the problem is it's knowing where to start sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, the porting Chad Shiflick. That sounds familiar. I must know another Shiflick, unless I know this one. Oh, Chad, I'm not a lover of timing gears, right? The only timing gears I thought had any merit were the Tufnell flathead Fords, right? They didn't transmit vibrations to the camshaft very well. I remember I called up Harvey once and I said, Harvey, if we transmitted vibrations to the camshaft either via gear or torsional, because it wasn't damped well enough, what happens to your super duper trick double throwdown calculations to smooth the motion out? He says, completely ruins it, right? Completely ruins it. So be careful with timing gears. If you're going to gears on, they can be made to work, but they better be very, very accurate timing gears, right? So my advice here is, unless you know what you're getting is well done, don't.
You can go back up to the scroll back up.
Scroll.
Ernesto right here has a really good.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Ernesto Lowen. That's how you say that.
Before we go,
okay.
Before we go there,
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that the web link that's on the screen is not a product placement ad. These are not the droids you are looking for. But really, if you haven't wrote it down, you don't have to write it down. If you go to any of our videos, if you look in the video notes right below the video, just click on more. There's a link in most, if not all of them. And Ernesto.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Ernesto, and this is my professional opinion, and David can agree or disagree. It says, what about conical?
I don't agree with that.
What about conical versus dual valve springs with this? Ernesto, I would say look at the weight. Valve train weight can get very crucial. So if the weight of your valve spring, obviously if you're measuring it by grams,
Yeah.
and your conical is going to give you the same spring pressure, and it's going to
It's-
be less weight.
And-
There you go. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
But this has been going on since this guy arrived here, right? He keeps asking my opinion on something. He tells me his story and then says, "What do you think?" And I said, "Yeah, about what you've just said, right?" And to back that up, I've got what's our video? We got a spring video, right? Which is about 29,000 people have looked at it now. But
Yeah. To sum it up, you don't need the same spring pressure.
no,
You need spring control. Valve
Yeah,
control is what you're looking for.
and it goes into all this.
Right.
And that's a fact. You do have to have
Scooter at
control.
Colt Cam said to me that was the best valve spring video he'd ever seen. Right? He said, "You've managed to explain a very complicated thing in simple terms and you've graphed
I
it
like
out."
the screen name.
Right? Will that work on asymmetrical loads also? Hell yes. Right? I can't remember what it's called. It's something like high-tech spring technology finally released. It's not just cup cars and pro stock cars doing it, right? Got a lot of help from comp cams and who else helped us out with samples that we could test, right?
Not PSI, but
Well, yeah, packs. I
Pack
use a lot
springs,
of
yeah.
pack springs as well. Yeah, Pack made me up some springs for my vintage motor, and to be honest, you looked at them and they looked like springs for a Briggs and Stratton side valve motor. Handled 600 lift and 8,000 RPM, just like that, right? And they weren't even stock poundage on the seat. They were about 20 pounds less than stock. And these were steel valves, stock rockers, stock style push rods, not the same material, flat tire, right? 289 cubic inches, 503 horsepower on a 2-plane manifold, right? A lot of that was due to the fact that Pack made up these springs. Don't expect to get them for peanuts, right? They cost Pack $6,000 to make, and I tested them. So I got a set of $6,000 valve springs for nothing.
here's a Vizard specific question.
Do I have any experience with them? Yes. On to the next question. No, look. Now there's. Let me ask the question here. Are you talking the Siamese port aluminum head or the Darrington 8-port head that they stopped making about 75, 80, long time ago, right? Let me tell you now, one of the best people at porting the original iron head is my ex and long-standing friend David Anton, right? This guy comes under the magic heading with MGB heads. His race car was a dirt car, and this will give you an idea how good he is with MGBs. He had a dirt car which he ran in the up to class, and they usually ran those with the open cars as well. That was the V8s, right? And he had absolutely no problem shutting down Chevy V8 cars with his MGB car, right? And of course, with the dirt racing, because he won every damn race, he always had to start off at the back. He was usually in six. So how did he get there? Because A, he knew how to design very good cams. He grinds his own cams at APT. And B, he does the porting on these heads so that they make horsepower, right? Now, how much these heads cost, I have no idea. Um, I know 10 years ago they were probably $1,000, right? Now, I am sure he could cut the same stuff on an aluminum head. I have only ported the Darrington aluminum heads. Is it Pierce does the manifolds, does the aluminum MGB head? I've heard say that they port up well, and I don't know if Dave, my cohort David at APT's ported one yet, right? But you might want to call him. Just go to apt.com, right, and get their phone number and call up David and ask whether his heads will out horsepower the other one or not. He'll give you an answer with no sales pitch put in, right? The guy doesn't know how to exaggerate or tell lies, right? It's not in his sphere of influence. Next question.
Let me take this to David. David has proposed to me to build us a dyno mule out of a 6-liter LS engine. Now, here's my thoughts. I'm looking for input, but my thought is everybody and his brothers out there doing fuel injection and tuning and the outside of the. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are, they've become really, really good and experts with carburetors and timing and distributors and such and so on. So I'm looking at the market of the videos out there and the data and literature I'm seeing everybody like they're just a big void out there in the market for people addressing a carbureted distributor driven LS motors. So I'm leaning towards wanting to do our dyno testing on carburetors and cylinder heads and stuff based on
You just prime LS engines, don't you?
Come well, that too.
Yeah.
But I've saw the Pace
tunnel
PS,
ram nuts.
I've seen the Pace company. They make kits. Come from the oil pan to the timing cover to the extension for the camshaft for distributor drive, and it's a front distributor, so you're eliminating a lot of the distortions in camshaft twist as far as your timing goes. So is there any other kits out there or stuff that would that's more economical and or going to have better options for doing that, or the interest in that is just so low that we really need to stay with fuel injection?
Well, I think what you're going to do is you're going to reach a market that's obviously the market that's either intimidated or they just don't feel comfortable going that route with the fuel injection. The guys that still understand carburation, how to adjust them, jet them, that's still a big market that I think people would, that's in that market is going to love that.
Yeah. I mean, I know so many
not everybody
young timers and old timers that they put dedicated years of learning and knowledge to learning this, and they don't want to fool with relearning it all again and relearn and learn how to even operate
I
computers.
understand you shouldn't throw away technology that works just because there's something newer. Now, let me explain my position here. I have quite often been asked the question, do I prefer fuel injection to carburetors? And my answer is yes.
Yes.
Right?
I knew the answer to that.
I absolutely love it because let me tell you my way of explaining this when people ask, right? With fuel injection, you tell it what mixture ratio you want. Say, I want at this RPM, this manifold vacuum here or throttle position, I want 13 to 1, and you program it in, and that's what it does. With a carburetor, did you know all Holley carburetors or any carburetor, they're female, right? Because you can't give them an order, you can't say, deliver 13 to 1. You've got to persuade them to do it, right? Now, if you are good at persuasion, you're going to be a brilliant carburetor guy, right? I've worked with some of the best, and one guy that I always like to brag about my association with because he was so helpful to me is Dave Braswell Carburetors. I can honestly say that in the time I spent with him, either on the dyno, over the phone, in his shop, whatever, because there was a time when we lived only about 8 miles apart. I've learned more from that guy on Holley carburetors than any 10 people put together, right? He was great to work with. If I asked him a question and he didn't know the answer, I love this about it. Pretty much drop everything and we'd work on it. Get the motor out, get the mule motor, put it on the dyno. Let's test this and see what happens, right? So I must have cost him a fortune in time he wasted trying to find out what was going on. But that was it. Dave Braswell, the research guy, business guy. If he was as good at business as he was at researching carburetor, he'd buy Donald Trump out of his checking account, right? He's just good at carburetors. That's it. So that's my standing in it. Fuel injection, I understand. I designed a fuel injection, an electronic fuel injection system, 1966. That before it was a lot simpler than the ones they have now. I designed all the nozzles for it and everything. Right? It didn't go into production because the company I was working for made stuff for Concorde, not cars. Right? So anyway, the thing is that the fuel injection that we've got now is great. The Holley carburetors we've got now are unbelievably good for a carburetor. You know, there's an old saying that some guy at Belfast University came up with years ago, about 1930.
Harry Belmont.
No. He said, the carburetor is a wonderfully ingenious device for giving an incorrect mixture at all engine speeds, right? Now, I can tell you now, although that's a cute expression, it's absolutely, totally wrong, right? The current carburetors, if you can persuade them, will give you a very precise mixture under all conditions. You just have to know how to persuade them. If you have no idea, buy my book on calibrating Holley carburetors. Now, does that answer the question? It's a long drawn out one. Single versus single versus double row timing chains, right? I
Matthew's
prefer the double row timing chain.
Matthew's looking at me. He's got some internet question I got up on the screen.
For Michael Gray, where he says coatings, I'm looking at coating intake valves, combustion chambers, pistons. Question, is the heat then converted into exhaust energy? If pistons coated only, does it increase chamber counts? Now, is this on his gas burner or on the diesel? Because we do the coatings on the diesels for the pistons, which is a 360-degree coating.
And that's because they take so much stress.
That's correct.
And also on them is it's almost beyond belief.
It is. It's pretty high. And at the same time, to help answer his question as far as like in the diesel realm,
thank you, Ernesto.
Is we have pilot and main injection events. So as far as the heat goes, obviously we need compression and heat to ignite that fuel. But it goes right back to the fuel injection that you're talking about. We have full control over that now. But now you also may have been talking about a gas application as well. You can let us know if you want to.
I'm trying to keep up with all guys. I'm getting some really
You said
good questions asked here,
Yeah.
right? But my apologies. Even with the three of us, we can't keep up with them, right? And the we're just literally cherry picking them. So now somebody asked me a question just now that I was going to answer. And the answer again was, oh, you need to buy my whatever book it was. And I've lost it.
There's another one for you, Matthew.
Yep, Cameron. Yeah, we don't have a actual better head like on that older of a truck. If you have a 92, you know, at 94.5 is when they first come out with the Power Stroke. So if you have anything pre, that would be what we considered the IDI, which is a distributor type fuel injection pump. The head on that, I can honestly say we have never, you know, done any testing or anything like that due to the year model of that. But I am very familiar with that platform. We've added turbochargers to the non-turbochargers back years ago, and to help them with, you know, towing and better performance. Do you have the IDI, as they call it, style truck?
Are we waiting for somebody to verbally ask here, guys? Or Dad's Garage,
Oh, there's a
He
man
wants
after
to
my
build
own
a-
heart.
the
Yes,
7.2 liter Windsor with all the
Big.
heads for a 2.3.
that's a 408 or a 410. But anyway, that's one Andy said.
7 liters is 427, so that's another 16, 12 cubic inches, right? On top of that, so 7.2 liters would be 427, 37, 441. Yeah,
It's
441.
it's this simple: foot-pounds per cube. Cubes are king.
Yeah.
But I'm biased, so what do I know?
Well, no, that's about as good a statement as ever can be made. Since polyquat has been mentioned so many times,
That's Dennis.
do they also help with secondary? Oh, wait a minute, what happened? Look, show. David, since polyquat has been mentioned so many times, would you also run a different spring on each valve depending on the valve mass? No, it is too small a difference, right? We are getting down to differences which are less than the tolerances we are dealing with, right? Have been 3 grams different. Remember, 4 valve heads already have light valves. 3 grams different, right? And we were more concerned about valve control with all the boost and RPM than we were about wearing out cams and things like this. Remember, this is a serious drag car, right? If those cams and lifters and valves and all that last for a mile and a half, that's it. As it happened, we managed to extend the life of the engine due to coatings, and you were talking about that earlier on, but I didn't get to read it all. And the coatings were, when the engine first went together, it used a cylinder head per meet, right? That's expensive. After we did a full polyquad, all the thermal barriers and stuff like that, the head would go about 20 meets before it was scrap, right? And you know, making the heat for 1500 horsepower in a 2-liter engine, it's got a heat issue, hasn't it? That's a lot. That is, think about the amount of heat, right? Each horsepower at the flywheel is 700. How many watts is in a horsepower? 748, isn't it? Right. So the engine was probably making close to 2000 horsepower in the cylinders. Right. So divide that by 0.78, and that'll give you the amount of BTUs. Yeah. It's about the same as a small nuclear explosion. You know, something around the 12 kiloton mark.
Okay. Here's something that's been asked a couple times, I think. Where did it go? I mean, if they were so good and they were so popular,
What?
the Predator carburetor.
Oh, I asked me to do some testing for them, right? And now, first off, if you can set up an SU, you'll probably be good at setting up a Predator. They don't set up anything like a Holley carburetor. Now, here's the deal. The Predator was a square carburetor, right? And as I pointed out to the guys at their predatory company, right? Every manifold out there was made for a carburetor with 4 round holes in. And I said, your carburetor works fine. You need to make manifolds that suit it now, right? I spent a lot of time modifying I think it was a Victor Jr., right, to suit a square Predator. A square bore, it was literally. It made something like 25 horsepower more than it did on a Holley based manifold, right? So anyone who did a back-to-back test with a Predator, a Holley and a Predator, right? The Predator started off with a 20 horsepower disadvantage right there. Now, as far as having it work, with a lot of work in it, it was a different deal. It could be made to work very well, but the hardware to support that design of carburetor wasn't there, right? It's a shame because it drove very nicely on the street as well. It was like having a giant square SU carburetor, and basically an SU can be calibrated like a fuel injection system, absolutely dead on. Just got to know how. Any more questions that we're going to answer? What's the time, fellas? I haven't had breakfast yet.
Let's go another 10 or 15 minutes and then wind her up.
Rolls and rides. Is there any benefit smoothing the tops of the pistons? Yes. There's less heat conduction. If you polish the top of your pistons, there's less heat conduction than having one that's still got it, right? Also, when a piston's got a little bit of carbon on it, that carbon insulates the piston crown. So usually a little carbon coating on the pistons makes more horsepower, right? The way I found this, I did this because it was I thought it might be an old wives' tale, was run an engine, and then after it's done a certain number of hours on the dyno, pull the heads off, polish pistons, put it back and see if it made any more horsepower. The usual deal was, no, it didn't.
Guess who did?
Tom. Hi, Tom. Late as abnormal. I owe you a phone call, don't I? I'll get around to it, but you can blame this guy here. He's absorbing my time. Right.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you a question, right? Since you're sucking the life out of me, right?
I guess.
Are you getting what you wanted?
Oh man, yeah. This is a must. Yeah, this is all.
Glad about that because
I'm having a great time.
Right.
and you know, I can already tell this, Matthew. You're typical of what I meet every time I come down here. We have people come to David's classes, you know, and I end up picking up and learning about as much from you and some of the other guys like
Yeah.
you as you pretend like you learn from David. Nobody learns nothing from me. I just repeat what I've heard.
I've said this time and time again. My class and my business here seems to attract top echelon minds, right? I mean, when we get a class in here, right,
There.
they're almost all
Dennis remembered
professionals.
Tom. That's Dennis.
And yes, oh, that's Tom that passed away, is it, Dennis?
He's talking about Tom Muse. No, that's not.
Oh, Tom, yeah, okay. 'Cause, look, Tom, I've got to make time for you, even if I have to come up and visit you, right? I've got to escape from guys like this, right? So, yeah, it's going to happen. You've got too much to offer, Tom, for me to turn down what seems to be an excellent opportunity for me to learn from an expert in the industry, right? So, no, I'm not going to miss the opportunity. Let me tell you a little story about, right? I had the opportunity to spend almost as much time talking to Smokey as I wanted to. And I always would say, well, you know what? I'll catch him next time I'm down. Or then the guy died. And I thought, I have screwed up, right, Roy? I could have spent so much quality time learning from this guy's experiences, etc., etc. And I screwed up because I didn't do it now. Right, so here's a piece of advice to people. Tomorrow.
I'm short.
Right, Dan Pollard, Mr. Visor, who is the advantage of? What is the advantage of rifle drilling the cranks and cams? Right, now the term rifle drilling might be misleading here, right? I think it's called rifle drilling because it's such a long damned hole. They're not rifled. The holes aren't rifled. They're just drilled holes. But to drill a rifle barrel, you've got to drill a 28-inch hole that's probably only 300 diameter. So it's got to be good. What is the advantage of rifle drilling cranks? Well, if they're too small, they need to be bigger, right? But here's the deal, right? There are some engines out there, and the Buick V6 is one of them, right? And by the way, I got this information from Smokey because he did a lot of work for Buick. That most of the oil galleys on them are. Now, I don't know if the later models they make them bigger, but when we went to Bonneville and set a record with a V6 engine, we had the world's fastest V6, right? It was a Chevy, what's that super streamlined one that they, small car. It was basically it came after the Vega, and they put a Monza, that's right. You know, my wife had one, right? And not that she ever drove it very fast, but my mother was another thing altogether. Very good aerodynamically, but the thing is with that V6 engine, we went, I think it was 212 miles an hour at Bonneville, right? And Smokey said, drill all these oil ways out because you'll have a lubrication problem, right? And we didn't. The engine just ran and ran. Right, I think it ran like about 4 separate years at Bonneville without a teardown. Right, the oiling system, if we're talking about a small block Chevy, the oiling system on a small block Chevy is very good. I sometimes put a drill through that main galley just to straighten that son of a bitch up. That's because I'm a fussy guy, right? I don't see any benefit from it except now I can go to sleep knowing this is a straight hole. Does that sound like you?
I've had people in industry tell me that a small block on average is a 25% more efficient in the moderate performing engine even needs. So
Yeah, that sounds to be probably an underestimate of it, right?
let's take some more advantage of Matthew before he gets up while we cut him here. He won't be here. Me and you'll keep being here, but I'd like to talk to you about tuning on gasoline motors and LS motors. Are you able to make some of these cars meet emission standards and perform just as well as if you just done an all-out tune for maximum performance?
It depends. I mean, you got to be careful with your cat. You want to make your cats live, so we don't want to get them too hot. Obviously, there's cat temp limiters inside the file that we need to look for. And I always ask my customers, I like to consult because I like to know, what's their intentions, what are they looking for,
usages.
yeah, and what octane fuel they're going to be running. But yeah, we've made some really good results with, like 93 pump gas. Somebody on here mentioned a Ford Coyote head, along with like the LS setups like you're talking about. The biggest thing with the engines that's out is, believe it or not, they're coming pretty good from the factory.
Chad, we're going to get to your question in a moment on this 5-angle valve job, but right now I'm going to let these two guys finish what they're saying.
But yeah, we can make some really good power with
So
even more with
about
some more supporting mods.
Was you referring to the direct injection on the Coyote and the
well, like the
LSs?
LT1, like the newer style Gen 5 LSs, that's a torque based platform, and that's a really tough platform for somebody to really jump on board and start to tune. Actually looking for X amount of torque to rotate the engine, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And so that affects the timing and everything. We're actually working on a Gen 5 project right now with the cam, springs, long tube headers. Obviously, it's retaining the cats, but we are using the long tube headers for better head scavenging, obviously. And we've actually put a different camshaft in to, as you know, them have a high pressure fuel pump. So we changed the lobe on the cam to give it a little bit more of aggressive ramp rate and shim the fuel pump in order to get pressure with the cam swap. So we'll be glad to even send some results your guys' way from dyno results of what our before and after stuff is. And we're looking at we're looking at 100 plus horsepower
for
here.
next week's.
So are you?
I'll be here this coming week with you guys, but when
can you get your guys to?
I happen to be the guy that's, I happen to be that guy. So,
okay.
So with the direct injection, if say we wanted to feed our injectors with a 95 or 100, 120 pounds of fuel pressure, are we going to be able to approach the performance level of the direct injections with a high fuel pressure, or is there a wide gap in the performance?
I think of it like this: as far as feeding the high pressure pump, anytime that your horsepower levels go up, your fuel demand goes up. And the one thing we don't want to ever happen is the fuel supply to the high pressure pump to diminish. So yeah, I mean, if whatever you're feeding the pump, keep in mind that ECM is controlling the fuel pressure with a solenoid on the high pressure pump.
Well, I was comparing a port injection to the direct injection.
Well, that's a different.
Substituting emulating the high pressure of the.
What you're saying is
like for like better atomization.
Right. See, that's totally different, because with the port injection, as you know, as you raise your fuel pressure, you actually make your injector larger. So if you have a 50-pound or 60-pound injector and flowing at 58 pounds of rail pressure, if you actually move your rail pressure up to 68 pounds, your injector
looks
gets
bigger.
bigger.
Yeah.
But,
But
But it
but-
optimizes better.
Yes, but the
but you
direct,
can offset that by decreasing the duration of or the dwell.
but yes, but with the direct injected, yes, you can't change the atomization by changing the pressure that you're actually using or delivering in the file, if that makes sense.
But
Oh,
you don't want to do that with a
Tell you
port
what,
injection.
let's look at a port injection pattern. Remember the head that we sectioned out there to show the spray pattern on the wall? Could you get it, Marvin? I'm hoping that our viewers can see this. Let's see what this. Yes, we can put it close enough, guys. Watch this. This was a subject of our conversation earlier on. Now, can you see that line there? That is the line of the fuel wash on the port.
There's where the injector's spraying in at.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now, whilst I got you here, right, one of the things that a lot of people do that they shouldn't do, because this is fuel wash, we don't want fuel wash, is when they port the heads, they smooth this turn out here. You should not touch that there. It should be rough as cast, right? If you polish this here, you have just got rid of power. I can't say exactly. I would say at least 5 to 6 horsepower, maybe as much as 10, right?
The
Do not,
carbon buildup right there.
yes, leave that rough finish there
On the short side.
on the short side. You're not going to make it flow any more air. That is a class short side turn there. It's been done very aerodynamically sound principles here, right? You'll notice that the curve gets sharp, tighter and tighter radius, right, as it goes around here. So this is, there's a name for a curve like this, right? Can't. This curve here on this basic LS1 head is right where it should be, right? So this area here, don't touch it, right? Now, where were we? What else were we doing on these LS1 heads here? I know you were over on the grinder for ages. What were you doing?
Yeah, opening them up.
Oh, I tell you what, you had that one head that you were working on that you painted red.
Let me go grab it. You want to go grab it?
Well, we'll let you grab it because it's heavy.
Yeah. It's in there on the,
Yeah,
it's right here.
Matt knows where it is because he was the last to touch it. We'll be back. Oh, guys, right. The one about the side valve engine, right? 5-angle valve job, no. You want a 3-angle valve job with the top, with the seat at 30 degrees. The problem with the flathead motor is that it doesn't have very big valves and you can't lift them very much because if you have a lot of lift in there, compromises the cylinder head. I've been, the best way to do this is, by the way, the first V8 I ever did was a flathead Ford. Made 225 horsepower and I was pissed because it seemed just such a small amount for such a big engine.
No, okay, I'm gonna see that. We can definitely see the.
No, I think we need to hold it up in front of them. At least here, Matt. If not, let's take the valves out, right? You can see what Matt's been working on here, right? Getting the shop incredibly dirty.
Yeah,
Now,
flashlight.
well, no, I was going to show them the seat work, right? But I think there's enough light to. Let's rotate it like this, right? Let's move it. Matt, can you grab the end of that? Move it. Right. Seat job. Right. Now, in spite of the fact that Matt's shop's equipment Do you know what his favorite tool for doing valve seats is? He's right at home with us Goodson stones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Love
that's
'em.
what these seats were done with.
Yeah, whenever they tell you you can't do good seat work with a
Right.
stone grinder,
No, you just got to.
just tell them they don't know how to use it
It
properly.
does require a craftsman, right? But
Yes.
the hang of it. Of course, I've been doing that stuff since before you were born, right? And how old was I when you were born?
I was born
Jesus.
in 1977.
Jesus Christ, you're a youngster, right? I was porting cylinder heads and driving race cars in 1958. Anyway, you still haven't answered the question. What was your plans with these Vortex stuff?
Well, for us, turbocharge. We're big into the turbocharger.
Right.
Turbo,
I should have guessed that, shouldn't I?
turbo, everything. Turbo
Yeah.
the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, for you guys who've not driven really tweaked turbo car, it's addictive.
Very.
Right? Once you've been there, it's like there's nothing else quite like it.
Mm-mm.
It must be the next best thing to owning your own Saturn V rocket. Yes.
And I've come from nitrous all my whole career. I love nitrous. I even still have a nitrous race car, and it's just hard to beat.
It truly is addictive, guys. If you don't figure a performance turbo engine in your life, you are shortchanging your life, literally. Right? A turbo has. I tell you what they drive like. Every time you shift up into another gear, it doesn't seem to make any difference. You still haven't come out to see. You can go first, second, third, right? And they all feel like the same amount of acceleration. I remember driving a Morris Minor, which was at the time England's #1 street performing car, right? And you could go through the gears on it, and at miles an hour, it was like most cars just starting off. Right? Now, I'll tell you how fast this car was. Up Prescott Hill climb, it was faster than a Formula 5000 car. Right? Think about this. A single seater with wings on it. This Morris Minor, which the guy drove to work every day, was faster than Formula 5000. Yeah, I thought that was great. Right. Anyway, do we have any more questions we're going to address?
Let's go ahead and cut the questions off, and let's just say greetings and thanks to everyone.
Yep.
We've
Okay.
Yep.
time's about up. We've went over, but anyway, look forward to doing it next week. We'll try to do it on I don't know if you remember this. Are you old enough to remember same bat time, same bat channel?
It sounds
Yeah,
familiar.
Batman. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
I was too old to watch programs like that, though.
But anyway,
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yeah, I want to say thank you this week too.
Oh, no.
We're just
We've learned a lot from you with all the research you've done on this. Thanks for letting us in on some of your stuff. Right? You've just chased this down. You've been chasing this stuff down to the bitter end for a lot of time now, right? You know, you'd be rich if it weren't for all the time you spent on R&D.
isn't bad the truth.
You'd have turned up
Lord
here in the
knows if we
Learjet.
had- Yes, I'd have landed my helicopter in the
Yeah.
backyard.
We haven't got room. There's too many trees out there.
That's it.
For you, I'll cut down a couple, right? As long as you bring your helicopter, right? Anyway, anything else, guys? Right? I love hearing David's story. I hope we can meet it. Wrong meat. That's meat, raw meat.
Yeah.
Overbuilt automotive. Yes, my thinking too. I like meeting people who are car people, right? They're my kind of people, right? So anything else, guys, I suggest you save it till next week. We will try and get together something which is pertinent with the questions you've asked for next week. Matt, bless his cotton socks, has agreed to do the show again next week. I'm not sure I want to talk to his wife about this, man, but she's
Yeah.
already called up and says, I'm hungry. So next week, same bat time, same bat channel, right?
Yeah, it's been great. Marvin Burke here with David Vizard
Matthew
and
Bussey,
Matthew Huss. And your company again,
Chaos Tuning.
Chaos Tuning. Look him up down there in Alabama. Despite with a big red maroon elephants. Yeah,
Crimson.
yeah.
Maroon elephants. Okay, guys, we're going to sign off now. It's been great having all these very interesting questions. I wish we could have answered more, but you guys are really, we need to give you twice as much time, but that's just not practical, right? But we'll do our best. So bear with us. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Well, that's it for this very long episode of PowerTec 10. If you like what you saw, please remember to subscribe. That's the big thing. And remember, we're on a drive for St. Jude's as well. Please help us out. Subscribe so that you help these kids. Just do it.